Good morning. Right, here with my friend Paul in Carmanah Provincial Park proper, and I'm going to show Paul some of the big old trees down in the valley here. I know Paul is really excited, aren't you, Paul?
Yeah, can't wait for trees.
There's a heck of a long way to come to see some trees, but I think it's worth it in the long run. So as many of you who watch my videos on a regular basis will know, I've been in here several times and done several videos about this area, so I won't go on about how difficult it is to photograph trees, but I will say that probably one of the hardest parts in here is coming up with something new. Now last time Jeremy and I were in here, I did get some nice shots, actually, some shots that I really like. One of them, the composition I'd taken before, but I had nicer light in it. I'll probably take Paul to that area. Maybe I can get something a little bit different down there. It's really foggy up here this morning, but I know what's going to happen as soon as we get down in the valley, because it always does. We'll get down there and there probably won't be any fog. But actually the light is perfect for this type of photography. Right, this tripod's getting really heavy, so we'll head on down the trail and see what we can find. I've photographed this a number of times. It's just beautiful. I just love the twisting kind of boardwalk through these old trees here. Now a minute ago there was fog in the background, which really added quite a lot of mood. So I'm going to wait for the fog again and hopefully we'll get that mood. The light is quite nice in here today. I mean, it's overcast, but it's great for this kind of thing. It's just nice if you get a little bit of atmospheric fog just to kind of give the trees a bit of separation. But these are the types of things I look for. You need a kind of a center of interest or something to lead you through the scene, and this path does a great job of that. And of course, being old cedar, it kind of has a rustic feel to it. But yeah, it's very quiet, and well, actually it wasn't that quiet a minute ago because Paul was flying his drone. It sounded like a swarm of bees, but now it's quite quiet. That's one of the reasons why I love it in here so much. It's just so quiet, and you don't realize how noisy your life is until you come to an area like this where it's just dead silence. Kind of like the Gobi Desert, that was very quiet as well. I think you guys can see this. So you'll see these very large Sitka spruce here. There's a whole group of them. There's actually 4 or 5 of them in one group, and then behind them there's a large dead one with lots of fungi on it, and then in the background that you can't really see, there's another one. But if I line my camera up a certain way, you can actually fill the whole frame with just these ginormous trees. And the interesting thing is that we have light coming from all different directions. So it kind of makes for a neat abstract, I think. I'm going to take a horizontal and then I might do a vertical as well. But you'll notice that the central tree in this group here, it has light coming from both sides. And then the tree in the background has light coming from a different side. So it's kind of a neat, just a neat scene. Now I'm using a pretty long lens on this. This is a 1:200 on this Fuji. Unfortunately, I don't have a quick release plate on this, so it sticks out way too far. It's not ideal. I'm gonna have to get a quick release plate for this so that we can balance it on this tripod head much better. And actually, this tripod head and tripod are not really sufficient for this size of camera, I don't think anyway. But we make do with what we have. So I'll take a number of shots horizontally and then vertically, and then I'll post them and you guys can have a look and scrutinize them. All right. It was absolutely fantastic to get into Carmanah Provincial Park again and show Paul the area. Now this scene here, as I said in my blurb, what really drew me to it was the unusual light. We seem to have light bouncing around and coming from all different directions. So I really wanted to emphasize that and also kind of portray these trees as just somewhat of an abstract image. Now the 1:200mm lens on the GFX 50R is quite long, and by using that lens I really narrowed the angle of view and also gave the illusion that the trees in the background were actually closer than they really were. Now in an ideal world I would have liked it if there weren't any branches sticking in the frame, especially in the lower left and the upper left, and I did clone out a couple of branches that had moved during my exposure. But as far as processing goes, I didn't do an awful lot. I just made sure that all of the highlights were as bright as possible, and I also darkened some of the shadows to just give the image a little bit of depth. But overall, I was really happy with the image. It is quite abstract and has some lovely textures in there, and it's amazing the array of colors in there, from greens to browns to reds as well. Something that you may have noticed about my woodland photography is that I rely heavily on what the light is doing to compose my photographs. It dictates what my subject might be. And this is a prime example of looking for situations where there might be light to define certain trees or trees with character, perhaps a little bit of fall color. Now for this image here, I'm actually standing in the deepest part of the forest, so it's very shadowed, very dark, but I'm shooting out towards more of a clearing. You'll notice that where the fall color is, there's actually not that many trees as compared to where I'm standing, and because there's a clearing there, you're actually getting ambient light coming in and flooding that area. So if you look at the trees, and especially that twisted tree in more or less the center there, even though it's flat light, there is some directional light hitting some of those branches, and it really defines the shape of the tree, and that's the type of thing that I look for. Something else that I try to avoid as much as possible, and I've mentioned this a number of times in many of my videos about woodland photography, is when you have cloudy conditions, I try to avoid white patches in the sky because your eye is drawn directly towards those bright areas. In some cases I'll clone them out the best I can, or in other situations I try to get my camera as high as possible so I'm shooting straight across the scene rather than up at a tree, as in this case. Many of you have probably noticed that throughout this video I've been using a Fuji GFX 50R medium format camera. No, I haven't given up my Nikon system. I really enjoy using the Nikon D850. It's an excellent camera. As far as the Fuji goes, an opportunity came up that allowed me to use both systems. So throughout my future videos I'll definitely be using either Nikon or the Fuji GFX, and perhaps someday down the road I'll tell you how I got a hold of the Fuji system. Alright, we've walked down the trail just a little bit further to an area called the Three Sisters, and there's a campground here. Unfortunately, the Three Sisters aren't three anymore, they're 2.5 sisters because one of the trees has fallen down. There used to be a platform kind of in the middle of the Three Sisters. You could take a shot looking up, but I've always had trouble finding other compositions there other than that shot. But we're just outside of the Three Sisters area, and we've come across this beautiful scene right here. There's a little bit of a gully just over here, and the light is filtering in to these trees here, and the tree in the middle there has beautiful kind of side lighting and a little bit of backlighting on the mosses and the side of the tree. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to compose it so that that's kind of in the center of the frame, and it's framed by these other two large trees on the side here. Taken a bunch of different compositions. I've taken some really wide with the log down below, vertical, and then horizontal shots. But yeah, the moss just looks beautiful right now. And that's the types of things that I look for in woodland photography. Rather than concentrating on just the subject matter, I concentrate on what the light is doing and then just compose my images around the light, as I was telling Paul earlier. Now right now you can see that that's actually a little bit too strong, so I'd let that kind of die down a little bit, because otherwise your specular highlights will just be blown right out and your shadows too dark. But yeah, this is really beautiful. It's turned out to be a great day. Yesterday it was just poured with rain, but today has been really nice. All right, that's it for today. So how'd the shoot go?
Yeah, really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it in there. It's beautiful down there. Beautiful.
So how does this compare to the woodlands in the UK, you think?
Well, obviously the trees are much bigger. And it's I think it's denser woodland here as well.
Yeah. Do you think it's easier to photograph or harder, or about the same?
Probably about the same, because I struggle with both anyway. But it's probably easier in the UK. I don't know, because there's more space. But I mean, here the trees are closer together, but there's more moss. I think there's more sort of interest.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's interesting. Yeah. So as they progressed, the light slowly got better and better, and we didn't hike that far. We went just. If you've watched my video before when I went with Jeremy, I'll leave a link up here if you haven't seen it. We hiked into an area just before the Three Sisters, which are three big trees. Well, there were three big trees, now there's just two. And that's as far as we got. There is more, there's 3 or 4 more kilometers of big trees, but I never ever get in that far, because the time you get down there and start taking images and then come back up again, the day's pretty much done. But yeah, it was a great trip, and I'm looking forward to coming in again. So thanks again for watching, everybody, and if you enjoyed my video, be sure to give me a thumbs up, and if you haven't checked out Paul's channel, then whip on over and go and show him some love. Give him a thumbs down.
Cheers, mate. Thanks very much.
All right, till next time. Thanks, everyone. Bye for now.
Ta-da.